said something about the authority of the state of Kansas. She heard herself whisper, "Yes." Then Buck turned her about in his big arms and kissed her. Wild Bill was watching all this with his heavy, winkless glance. His voice was musical and infinitely courteous. "It is not an easy country on women. Use your friends, Mrs. LaGrange, when you need them. Buck is to be congratulated." The other two men shook hands with her, but it was all hazy and hurried, with Buck guiding her through the door. Somebody had brought the buggy around, and she climbed to the seat and felt the blast of the wind. A square sheet of paper curled through the half-gale, so weirdly that the nervous horses began bucking. Buck's voice lifted. "Steady, steady!" He was laughing. He bent over, shouting, "Write and tell your people the greatest gunman in the West was a witness at the ceremony. A desperado." He didn't hear. He said, "What?" She didn't answer. They were careening around a corner, enveloped by a whirling wave of dust and sand. A row of houses, all unpainted and angular, sat along the short street, and beyond lay the howling open country, lost behind the dust. They stopped. Buck tied the reins and got down, handing her out. He led her across a yard faintly marked by tufts of scorched buffalo grass, to a house standing square and uncompromising in the yellow light. Nothing distinguished it from the other houses. Nothing relieved its barren outline. Buck opened the door quickly. A hot, trapped air rolled into her face. The smell of dust and baked lumber was overpowering. It moved her backward against him, and he had to propel her gently across the threshold. When he closed the door, the eternal rush of the wind died to a groaning, rubbing sibilance. A few pieces of furniture partially relieved the gauntness of the room. There was a white cloth on a center table, slowly turning gray. "This is our home?" "This is it," he said. She turned toward him, and the sight of her eyes instantly sobered him. He delayed speaking a moment, seeking the right words. He said, "I tried not to lead you to expect too much in my letters. It isn't the sort of house you came from. There are no such houses in Abilene. This town's only 4 years old. About all I can say is that nobody else here lives in any better house." She came against him, putting her head down. He steadied her. "The zephyr's on your nerves, honey." "Does it never stop?" "Maybe tonight. Maybe a month from tonight. Nobody knows." He went out for her luggage, making several trips of it, and afterwards stabled his horses and rig in the barn behind the house. When he came back, he found her in the kitchen, staring darkly at the stove. Wind gushed down the pipe, throwing ashes out through the grating. There was a mat of ashes on the floor. He said, inexpressibly gentle, "One thing all of us have been forced to learn out here. We haven't the time nor the strength yet to fight the temper of the weather. The land won't change for us. We have to change with the land." She was still watching the stove. "You have changed, Buck. In Connecticut, I was a grocery clerk. I never would have been anything better. There's a chance for everybody out here. I mean to take my chance and make a go of it." She turned then. His deep pleasure was gone, and a shadow hovered faintly across his eyes. She knew what that was. It was the reflection of the doubt he had seen on her face. She had disappointed him. In this first hour of hope and happiness, her faint withdrawing had made it less than perfect, and because he was a New Englander, she knew the flaw would lie in his memory. The situation had slipped out of her hands. She didn't know how to set the shadow aside. She said with a faint laconic drawl, "I had better begin to work." It continued to lie between them, and to chill the intimacy which should have been theirs, the memory of that single instant in which her faith had wavered. Across the breakfast table, she felt how easy it would be to bridge that gap with one warm word, and could not find the word. At night, she knew he had only to put his arms around her in the rough, hot way of a man and kill the coldness forever. But he did not. In his slow, quiet talk was a perception of her reserve and a memory of his hurt. This was the 4th day of their marriage. This was the 4th day of the wind. Walking with him toward the stores of Abilene, holding her skirts resolutely against